What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video with my modified M2 competition and with the brand new BMW M2 CS. And in today's video we're gonna put these two cars head to head. So in today's video I'm gonna drive the CS, see how it compares to a standard M2 competition, and then I'm gonna see if my modified M2 competition can match the mighty M2 CS. Now let's jump into that car and start today's video. First things first, what's new here? Well, in addition to the competition model, the CS features quite a lot of carbon bits on the outside. The front lip, the rear diffuser, the boot spoiler, the wing mirrors, the roof, and the bonnet of the car are all made from carbon fiber. Then this car features the optional gold 763M wheels and carbon brakes. And overall the car looks amazing from the outside, just gorgeous. On the interior, all the open pored carbon from the competition has been replaced with this glossy carbon. The steering wheel is wrapped in Alcantara, so is the CS trim on the dash and the center console as well. In addition to that, the car comes equipped with the M3 competition seats, the ones with the holes in them of course, wrapped in real leather, and the armrest has been removed for weight saving purposes. And for the same reason, the whole center console, as you can see, is made from carbon fiber. The car is still powered by the S55 straight-six twin-turbo engine as the competition, but power is bumped up to 450 horsepower. There's two choices of transmissions, this 7-speed DCT and a manual, just like the competition, and for the first time ever, an M2 has adaptive dampers from factory. And even though you might expect this car to be lighter than a competition, it's not. All the weight that's been saved by the extensive use of carbon fiber was undone by the addition of the adaptive suspension system. So quickly, what things matter the most when comparing a competition to a CS? Well, first off there's the power and then there's the suspension. Nothing else that's major has changed on the CS. First off, power. Well, you can definitely tell that the CS is a much faster car than the competition, and I haven't even put my foot properly down on the gas because this car hasn't been run in yet and I don't really want to spoil it for the next owner. But it definitely feels quite a bit faster than my competition. Also, the power delivery seems to be much better at lower RPMs. But for me, straight line speed is the last thing that I would upgrade on an M2. But what was missing on a competition and on the standard car was a proper suspension system. This car gets the adaptive dampers from its bigger brothers, and you can tell that as soon as you start to drive off. In comfort mode it feels a bit more comfortable than the stock competition, and in Sport Plus mode, you've guessed it, it feels a bit sportier than the competition. The suspension isn't as harsh and it feels more supple when you're just cruising around. So all in all, I'd say that the CS dampers feel a bit more sophisticated than the ones on the competition. Unfortunately, the problem I had with my M2 competition still exists in the CS. The car still jumps around quite a lot, especially when you're driving it at the limit, even in comfort mode. Granted, the competition jumped around even when you drove it at normal speeds, whereas this one only does it when you're driving it hard. But isn't that what the CS was made for? So how does this CS feel compared to a standard competition? I think it looks better thanks to all the fancy carbon bits on the inside and the carbon roof and especially the carbon hood. It rides better thanks to the adaptive suspension system, and the interior looks a bit better and obviously feels a bit better because this car has real leather on the seats as opposed to the competition, which has that fake one, the Cora leather I think, or something like that. But that's the thing, it's incrementally better in every way, but for me at least, it doesn't feel very special. It feels more like a competition plus, if that makes any sense, or better still, like a big facelift where all the areas of the car are slightly improved. I'm gonna say something controversial, so here goes nothing. In my opinion, the competition was a much bigger improvement over the LCI than the CS is over the competition. Compared to the LCI, the competition had a different engine, new traction control system, new driving modes, fancier seats, and overall it felt quite different to the LCI. Whereas the CS, like I've said already, feels like a competition plus. And in Sweden at least, the competition was just 7% more expensive than the LCI. Whereas this one, the CS, costs around 35% more than my competition. 30,000 euros more to be precise, compared to what my competition costs brand new. But the obvious question is it 30,000 euros better than my M2 competition? Or better yet, can you build a competition that drives better than a CS for less than half of that amount? Well, those are the questions that I'm gonna attempt to answer once I jump into my M2 competition. So the answer to the first question is plain and simple, no. It's not 30k more than this competition. It's all too familiar when you're sitting behind the steering wheel and when you're just cruising around or blasting through some B roads, it's very hard to tell the difference between the two cars. Like I've said, the CS is incrementally better in every way than the competition, but it's not a game changer as the price might suggest. So now that we've established that the CS is indeed better than a standard M2 competition, one question remains. Can you build a better CS for less money than it would cost you to upgrade to one? Well, I'd argue that yes, you can. And here's one example of a modified M2 competition. It has an Alcantara steering wheel on the inside with some cool paddles and some carbon on it. At the back it features a Milltek equal length exhaust system that sounds pretty good if you ask me, and it rides on Bilstein PSS 10 dampers tuned to Litchfield specifications. And those mods altogether cost roughly 7,000 euro to fit to your car. Now obviously it doesn't feature any of the cool carbon bits on the outside as the CS, but let's add another 10k to our budget so that we make it look just like a CS, and that's just 17,000 euros to build your very own BMW CS from a standard competition. First things first, the exhaust. BMW claimed that the exhaust on the CS is better and everything, but to me it doesn't sound too different from a regular or standard competition. But the Milltek equal length system fitted to this car really makes it come alive. Have a listen to this. Then there's the suspension system. Like I've said, this car is fitted with Bilstein PSS 10 dampers tuned to Litchfield specifications by Bilstein themselves, of course. Which means this kit has custom Litchfield springs, softer and more compliant, and the internal valving of the dampers has been changed. And this completely transforms the M2 competition. It's more comfortable as a daily driver, The suspension doesn't crash every time you go over bumps, and the ride of this thing is so much better than the stock one. It is a huge improvement when you're daily driving this car. But when you're on it, the car instantly feels more confidence-inspiring. The back of the car doesn't jump anymore mid-corner when the road surface is uneven, and the whole car feels more planted to the road. Body roll is significantly reduced, and if you soften the back dampers more than the front ones by about 2 clicks, you gain even more grip at the back. So yeah, if you ask me, I might be biased, but I think this suspension system is miles better than the standard one fitted to the CS, even though that one is better than the stock competition ones. And if I had to take a guess, I'd say that even the other premium suspension manufacturers can't build you a suspension system that's better than the stock CS one. I'm not trying to bash the CS here, but this is what I feel when driving these two cars back to back. And I know this competition is missing out on all the fancy carbon options that the CS has, but for me, a CS, CSL or whatever special edition M car should be more about enhancing the driving experience and not the, I don't know, design, so to speak. But my biggest problem with the M2 CS is not actually how much it costs. No, I totally get it. It's a limited special edition M car. It drives very well, it looks quite good, and most likely it's gonna go down into the history books as one of the best M cars ever made. So yeah, the price is not really an issue for me, but the depreciation is. The M2 CS I've driven today that you saw at the beginning of the video is on sale for more than a year now, and in that year where it's just sat in a showroom, it's already lost about 20,000 euros. Now I for one feel quite privileged to be able to drive and own such a car, and I don't really take it for granted, trust me. But at the same time, I'm very careful when I buy cars because, to be honest, I can't really afford to buy one of these cars, drive it for a year and then lose 30% of its value. I just can't afford that. I bought my car as used. It had about 2,500 kilometers on it, and I got quite a good deal on the car. And if I now, for example, want to sell it after 1 year, I would roughly get the same price I paid for it. Why is that? Well, that happens because of 2 reasons. A, they've stopped making them, so you can't buy new ones anymore. And B, because CSs, at least in Sweden, have flooded the market, and that just makes these cars look like bargains at the moment. So yeah, I would actually love to buy a CS. That's the reason I test drove the car at the beginning of the video, but I'm just really afraid of the depreciation. So yeah, let's try and have a conclusion to this video because I feel that I've kind of gone all over the place on this one. So if you want a great M car that will put a smile on your face every single time you get behind the steering wheel, and one that's quite cheap to buy for an M car and to maintain, then get the competition. It's absolutely fantastic. But if you want the ultimate BMW M2 and you're not a fan of modifying cars, and quite importantly, you don't care about depreciation, then go right ahead and buy the M2 CS. It is the best M2 from the lineup, no doubt about it. And lastly, if you're like me and depreciation is something that concerns you, and on top of that you like to personalize your car and obviously modify it, then go right ahead and buy a used M2 competition and start upgrading it. for roughly half of the price difference between a competition and the CS, you can build yourself quite a special BMW M2. But that's been it for today's video, my friends. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you have, and make sure you're subscribed for plenty more videos to come.